What's up, fam? Just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you for all the incredible feedback this story's been getting. You've been commenting, liking, sharing your theories, and honestly, that just pushes me to keep giving this project my all. Just a heads up, I always release the episodes as a full compilation, so with each new chapter, I just add it to the original story. To make it easier for you, I've marked exactly where the new part starts in the video, so you can jump right in without any confusion. Now let's get into today's episode. It's gonna be a wild one.
Remember, you two have to be perfectly in sync.
You!
Yes!
Jen! Ha!
Hakai.
This story begins in the middle of the chaos of the Majin Buu saga. Vegito is there, fighting hard against Super Buu, pounding the pink demon mercilessly, and then, in true trust the plan style, he allows himself to be absorbed on purpose, all to enter Buu's body and save Piccolo and the kids. But the fusion time runs out, and poof! Goku and Vegeta appear separated again inside the demon's disgusting sticky body. The two begin to explore that bizarre labyrinth of veins and tissues, looking for their friends, when out of nowhere malevolent versions of Gotenks, Gohan, and even Piccolo appear. And man, these aren't just copies, they're true abominations with absurd power. Goku and Vegeta manage to deal with them, punching, kicking, and firing energy blasts all over the place, but there's a serious problem: they don't die. That's right, the bastards come back whole, as if nothing had happened. And meanwhile, Goku and Vegeta just keep getting weaker, sweating, panting, and feeling the exhaustion taking over. If things kept going like that, the two of them would drop dead before saving anyone. And just to make it worse, Vegeta's earring suddenly snaps, shattering into pieces. In other words, Potara fusion? Yeah, forget about it. Goku turns to Vegeta with that serious look, sweat dripping down his forehead, and says those damn things are immortal in here. Their only shot at rescuing the boys and Piccolo is using the fusion he learned in the other world. He says it'll create a super powerful warrior, strong enough to keep them alive, just long enough to get everyone out. Vegeta huffs, rolls his eyes and grumbles like he's swallowing his pride, saying that fusing with Kakarot again is just plain annoying. Goku lets out that classic laugh of his, scratching the back of his neck, and tries to calm Vegeta down, saying the fusion only lasts 30 minutes and then each one goes back to their own corner. Vegeta agrees, but it's obvious he hates the idea. He crosses his arms, frowns, and makes it clear he's only doing it because he has to. But before they can fuse, they need to practice the steps. Goku explains everything, that goofy little dance that looks more like something from a children's play. And Vegeta is absolutely outraged by the ridiculous moves, his face turning red from embarrassment. He looks around like he's checking if someone might be watching this humiliation and mutters through gritted teeth that it's beyond humiliating. But he'll do it because it's necessary. Goku insists that he practice properly, showing each step with care, and warning that if they mess it up, they'll have to wait a long time to try again, and Majin Buu won't give them that chance. Vegeta, boiling with irritation, follows the steps while Goku corrects everything, telling him to stretch his arm more, point his fingers right, and yell "Fusion!" at the exact moment. After a few embarrassing tries, they finally get it right. Their bodies move in sync, fingers touch, and a burst of bright light explodes around them. And then he appears, a new warrior with absurd power, with spiky black hair and a blue and orange vest, Gogeta. He looks at his own hands, feeling the power rush through him like an electric current. A confident smile forms on his face, blending Goku's determination with Vegeta's arrogance. Gogeta heads straight back to the battlefield inside Buu and doesn't waste time with words. He takes on the evil versions of his friends, like he's cleaning up trash, throwing punches, kicks, and energy blasts that light up the place. He moves forward without breaking a sweat until he finds his real friends, still trapped inside the villain's body. Gogeta looks ahead, solid as a rock, and declares with a voice that blends Goku's tone and Vegeta's grit that he's going to defeat Majin Buu and get out of there. He says he's not planning to disappear, he wants to stay on Earth until the day he dies. The chaos he unleashes draws the attention of the real Majin Buu, who shows up furious, wearing the face of someone who just ate something disgusting. Majin Buu narrows his eyes, confused, and asks how Vegito managed to escape, commenting that something about him looks different. Gogeta answers without hesitation, pointing his finger straight at the villain, and making it clear he is not Vegito, he is something else entirely, the fusion of Goku and Vegeta. His name is Gogeta. The battle erupts like a volcano. Gogeta goes goes all in, pummeling Buu without mercy, each punch twisting and warping the demon's body. He pushes forward step by step until he finally frees the boys and Piccolo from those gelatinous prisons. He even blasts a massive hole through the demon's head, trying to carve a way out. But Buu regenerates in an instant and seals the path shut again. Majin Buu screams, foaming with rage, swearing that the wretch won't escape. Gogeta unleashes a storm of energy blasts, lighting up the entire inside of Buu's body. In the middle of all the chaos, he spots Fat Majin Buu trapped just like the others. He pauses, scratching his chin, wondering if pulling that one out might weaken the monster. Without thinking twice, he grabs Fat Buu and yanks him out like pulling a weed from the ground. And it works! Majin Buu starts crumbling like a sandcastle, losing strength, collapsing and transforming once again while screaming in pain. Gogeta wastes no time. He grabs the boys and Piccolo and shoots out of the demon's body like a rocket. Buu starts screaming just like in the original story, but now it's filled with pure hatred and the sound echoes across the entire planet. Gogeta, completely fed up with all the noise, starts pounding the villain with everything he's got. His fists move so fast they blur, each strike sending shockwaves through the air. Buu, now in a panic, charges up a massive energy ball to destroy the earth, a glowing pink sphere that grows larger and larger with every second. But Gogeta doesn't give him the chance. He grabs the ball with both hands, muscles shaking from the force, and with a furious war cry hurls it into space. His body shines with power, a golden aura pulsing all around him. As he feels the energy flowing through him, he realizes that his body holds an incredible power, and he goes on the offensive, unleashing a relentless barrage of attacks, each blow more devastating than the last, until finally he charges up one final move, a Kamehameha so powerful it tears through the sky. The villain is destroyed, disintegrating into tiny particles of light. The Kai celebrate in the other world, jumping, cheering, hugging each other. Gogeta didn't just save everyone, he ended the universe's worst nightmare. But there's no time to rest, no time to celebrate. He looks up to the sky and shouts, his voice echoing as he calls for Kibitoshin. He says they need to go to planet Namek right now, that they have to bring back everyone Majin Buu killed, and that only the Dragon Balls over there can make it happen. Then he glances at his wrist, like checking an invisible watch, and reminds them they have to hurry before the fusion runs out. Kaioshin shows up in the blink of an eye, and together they teleport to Namek using instant transmission. There, the Namekian elder appears, with his wrinkled green skin and wise eyes, and listens quietly to the request. Gogeta speaks quickly, explaining that they need the Dragon Balls, that they have to use them within the next 130 days to bring back the humans killed by Majin Buu, including Vegeta. And there's more. He hesitates for a moment, like what he's about to say is hard to believe even for him. He wants the fusion to be undone, but he wants to continue existing. He says he wants his own body and soul, completely independent and if possible, with the same powers. The elder's eyes widen, clearly surprised by such an unusual request. He says the wish is complicated, that Gogeta has already gone beyond even his understanding of power, but he agrees. He says it would take 2 wishes, but that's alright. He'll create a body and soul for Gogeta, maybe with a little less power for now, but with the ability to evolve rapidly and reach the same level again. The Namekian dragon's eyes light up like beacons in the dark. A blinding light spreads across the sky, covering everything. When it fades and vision returns, Goku and Vegeta are standing on one side, and on the other, standing is Gogeta, a unique being, independent, alive. Goku smiles, scratching the back of his head, clearly impressed, and says he never thought he'd see their fusion become a real person. Vegeta crosses his arms and says, in that classic arrogant tone, that Gogeta better not think he's the strongest Saiyan in the universe, because he, Vegeta, will surpass both Gogeta and Kakarot. Gogeta looks at them both and answers with a confident smile, asking Vegeta not to say that. He explains that his goal is to become the most powerful of the Saiyans, and that to achieve that, he's going to need help from both of them. Goku agrees right away, as always, excited by the idea of getting stronger. He says it'll be fun to train with Gogeta. Vegeta doesn't say a word. He just turns his back with that classic offended prince pose. But deep down he already knows. This story is just beginning. With everything settled, Gogeta looks up to the sky and speaks directly, no hesitation, asking Kibitoshin to take them back to Earth now that it's all been taken care of. And in the blink of an eye, they're back. As soon as they arrive, Bulma looks at Gogeta from head to toe, those curious blue eyes scanning him, and asks who this guy is. She points out that his outfit looks a lot like the one Goten and Trunks wear when they fuse. But Gogeta doesn't stall. He answers clearly, looking her straight in the eyes, saying that he's the fusion of Goku and Vegeta and that his name is Gogeta. Then comes the heavy part. He explains that he used the Dragon Balls to ask for a body and soul of his own, because once the fusion ended, he would have simply vanished, and he didn't want to stop existing. Everyone is in shock, eyes wide, completely caught off guard. No one imagined something like this was even possible. Trunks looks amazed, his eyes glowing with excitement, and shouts that it's incredible, that it's literally the fusion of their fathers. And Gogeta keeps speaking calmly, explaining that he holds all of Goku's and Vegeta's memories. But even with all that inside him, he has his own consciousness, his own will, his own opinions. He says he's someone new. Then comes the human side of it. He speaks more softly now, saying he just wanted to live more than 30 minutes. He wanted the chance to actually exist. He says he cares about Goku's and Vegeta's families, that he likes all of them, and that he just wants to live in peace with both families. At that moment, Goten gets a little emotional, his eyes watery, and says it's kinda strange. Gogeta is his father, but at the same time, he isn't. Still, if even a part of Gogeta's heart comes from his dad, then he's not going to leave him behind. Then Chi-Chi turns to Bulma and says it straight, with that fierce determination only she has. She suggests they do the fusion. She explains that if they become one, they can ask the dragon for the same wish he granted Gogeta, and that way, he won't be alone anymore. And Bulma answers firmly, standing solid like a rock, saying she's in. She accepts the idea without hesitation. Gogeta overhears the conversation and turns curious, asking what Bulma really thinks about all of this. She smiles, a mix of determination and affection in her expression, and says that if they're sure about it, then she's happy. She adds that it might actually be fun to have a female version of the fusion walking around. Then Gogeta scratches his chin and brings up the technical part, explaining that they need to learn to control their ki to do the dance properly. Bulma swallows hard, a bit nervous, and admits she never imagined she'd have to learn to control ki, and that it probably isn't easy. That's when Videl joins the conversation, totally calm and confident. She says it's not that hard, that they'll pick it up quickly. She tells them that when she trained with Gohan, she learned to release her energy in no time, and invites them to come over to her place for training. She also says she's waiting for Gogeta too, and he just smiles, nods his head, and confirms he'll be there. Meanwhile, Trunks begins to train his mother. He teaches Bulma how to release and control her ki with all the patience in the world, guiding her to breathe deeply, focus on the center of her body and feel the energy flowing through her. Vegeta, on the other hand, is going all out in the gravity chamber with Gogeta. The two are drenched in sweat, shouting, throwing punches, constantly pushing each other to the limit. Gogeta still couldn't transform into a Super Saiyan, so he threw himself into intense training day and night. But because of the wish made to the dragon, his evolution is absurd. On the very first day, he manages to transform with ease, his black hair bursting into gold as a radiant aura surrounds his body. At the same time, Bulma successfully manages to release a small spark of energy. A tiny blue glow forms between her hands, and she stares at it in awe, like a child discovering a new toy. Elsewhere, Goku is helping Chi-Chi. Same thing, ki control, the dance. Goten is there too, of course, cause if there's one thing he knows, it's fusion. 130 days go by, filled with intense training, constant preparation, and growing anticipation. And then the big day arrives, the day of the mother's fusion. Bulma shows up at Goku's house ready to perform the dance with Chi-Chi. Both are wearing identical training outfits. And on the very first try, it happens. The legendary Fat Buichi is born, a completely awkward version with a wildly disproportionate body and a face that looks like someone who just ate something awful. Fat Buichi gives a crooked smile and asks, in a strangely high-pitched voice, what everyone thinks of her. Gogeta and the others just stare in shock, mouths wide open, and all say at the same time that she looks horrible, but she doesn't take it personally. With full sincerity, she explains that it was just a mistake in finger positioning. That's why it turned out wrong, just like when the boys messed it up. She puts a hand on her chest, breathing heavily, and complains that she feels super heavy, like she just ran a marathon. She says it's like being a poorly made version of Gotenks. After resting a bit, they go back to training. A few more tries, and then it finally happens. The perfect fusion. The two women execute the dance flawlessly, their movements smooth and synchronized like a well-practiced routine, shouting "Fu! Shon! Ha!" Gogeta at the exact right moment. From the fusion of Bulma and Chi-Chi, a new woman is born, radiating an impressive ki and carrying a look that says it all. Long bluish hair, an athletic body, and a presence that combines Bulma's intelligence with Chi-Chi's determination. She stands firm, places her hands on her hips, and introduces herself with confidence. Her name is Buichi. Gogeta smiles from the corner of his mouth, clearly impressed, and congratulates them, saying they pulled it off, that the fusion came out perfect. Goku walks up, curious like a kid seeing something new, and says he thought it was awesome, that he really liked her. Buichi feels the power flowing through her body like electricity. She flexes her muscles and says that now they just need to head to planet Namek. She mentions how incredible she feels, like the energy is alive inside her, and explains that this is the effect of fusion, that it multiplies strength, even in regular human beings. With Bulma's memories, she understands complex things instantly. Formulas, advanced tech projects, theories no one else could grasp. Her mind becomes a living calculator. And from Chi-Chi, she inherits the instinct to fight, strict discipline, and unshakable willpower. A genius and a warrior combined into one. The perfect combination. Buichi turns to Gogeta with a confident smile and a spark in her eyes. She says she wants to train with him, because the most powerful Saiyan in the universe deserves a training partner who can match his level. At that moment, Chi-Chi's fighting spirit lights up inside her like a flame. Goku senses her energy rising and is completely amazed. He says her life force just shot up, way beyond what he expected. Vegeta, with his arms crossed and a subtle smile of approval at the corner of his mouth, agrees and tells Kakarot that they really have become powerful. Buichi releases her energy with confidence, a blue aura forming around her body, and says she wants to spar with Gogeta to test her abilities. They begin a friendly battle in the garden. Gogeta holds back, of course, but even so, he's surprised by the strength of this new warrior. She moves with fluid precision, every strike measured, every dodge flawless. After the training, both are panting and smiling. Gogeta says they should head to the other side of the planet, because from there he can feel the ki of the Namekians. With instant transmission, they vanish and reappear on Namek, landing directly on the green surface of the planet. Which introduces herself to the Elder with a slight bow and explains that she came to make a wish, the same wish Gogeta made. She says she wants to become a real woman, with her own body and soul, separate from Bulma and Chi-Chi. The Elder listens carefully and raises his hands to the sky, asking the dragon to do just that, to separate the fusion and give Buichi a unique existence, just as he did with Gogeta. The dragon responds with his booming voice, explaining that unlike Gogeta, whose power was far beyond normal limits, Buichi is already in perfect balance. That's why her powers will remain the same after the separation. The dragon's eyes shine like stars. A powerful light envelops Buichi completely, covering her body in an intense glow. When it fades, Buichi is standing on one side and Bulma and Chi-Chi are on the other, blinking in confusion. Bulma walks up to Buichi and asks how she feels, her voice filled with curiosity. Buichi smiles, placing a hand on her own face as if to confirm it's real, and says she feels amazing. She explains that she still has all the memories of both, all the knowledge, all the strength, and that she is without a doubt the perfect wife. Then the dragon speaks again, his voice echoing across the sky, reminding them that there are still 2 wishes left, and the next wishes are to resurrect King Kai and his assistants and to rebuild their planet. The dragon responds with that chilling thunderous voice, confirming that the wish has been granted, that King Kai and his assistants are back, and that the planet has been restored. With everything resolved, the group returns to Earth. Gogeta and Buichi begin living near Capsule Corporation in a house that Bulma helped build especially for them. And you know how it goes, now that they're officially a couple, all that was left was to enjoy the famous delicious. Gogeta lets out a nervous laugh, blushing just a little, and repeats the word delicious with a curious and slightly confused tone. He scratches his head, a little embarrassed, and says that if he remembers right, that was Bulma's thing. Every time she wanted something, she used that word. Buichi holds back a smile and responds directly, stepping closer to him with a seductive gaze, saying she's already thought about the names of their future kids. If it's a girl, she'll be named Mina, and if it's a boy, Renji. Then she asks what he thinks. Gogeta pauses for a moment, imagining what their kids might be like, and says it's not bad. He actually likes the names. As time passes, Buichi starts showing just how brilliant she really is. She builds machines, aircraft, defense systems, and her technology becomes a huge success at Capsule Corporation. Sales go through the roof. Chi-Chi turns into a commercial sensation, her genius creating things no one ever imagined. And Gogeta? He doesn't work at all. He trains day and night, obsessed with getting stronger. The one supporting the household is her, and she does it with plenty to spare. One day, Gogeta shows up in the field, where Goku is working with a hoe, all sweaty, pulling out weeds under the scorching sun. Gogeta walks over with a smile and says he knows Chi-Chi doesn't let Goku train unless he finishes his chores. That's why he brought something to help. He tosses a capsule onto the ground, and with a soft poof, a shiny new tractor appears. The latest model from Capsule Corporation. Goku's face lights up instantly. He grins from ear to ear, his eyes glowing like a kid with a new toy, and says it's perfect. Now he can finish everything in no time. Just as they finish plowing the field, Goku and Gogeta start stretching, warming up their muscles, ready for a good fight. But then, a voice speaks from behind them, calm and commanding. Both of them turn around instantly, startled. They hadn't sensed a thing, no key, no presence. It was like someone had appeared out of thin air. And for warriors like them, that only means one thing: danger. Standing there is a lean, purple-skinned being with sharp ears and a piercing gaze. He doesn't say a word, but his presence alone feels heavy. Beside him stands a tall, elegant figure with light blue skin and long, upright, white hair. He holds a glowing staff and watches the scene with a soft, unreadable smile. They have no idea who these two are, but one thing is clear: these are not ordinary beings. Gogeta freezes for a moment and takes a step back, visibly alarmed. In a low voice he says, "This can't be true, that it's impossible he's really here." Goku turns around confused and asks who those guys are. Gogeta keeps his eyes fixed and answers seriously, "That's Beerus, the Destroyer." In Vegeta's childhood memories, this being appeared a few times on Planet Saiyan, and every time he humiliated his father King Vegeta with no effort. His power is simply unmatched. He's the most powerful god in this entire universe, and if he's here, that can only mean Earth is in serious danger. Goku is immediately shaken, his eyes go wide, and his body tenses up. Just the thought that Earth might be at risk completely changes the atmosphere. Right after that, Beerus steps forward and locks eyes with Gogeta, his sharp gaze cutting through like it sees into the soul. He says this is quite interesting. Apparently, this warrior in front of him carries the memories of a certain Saiyan. Then, without hesitation, he asks in a firm voice if either of them is the Super Saiyan God. Gogeta furrows his brow, clearly confused, and replies that he doesn't know anything about this so-called Super Saiyan God that Beerus is looking for. Whis starts laughing softly, clearly amused by the moment, and says it seems like Beerus' prophetic dream was wrong again. Beerus instantly frowns, visibly irritated by the remark, and turns back to Gogeta, asking if maybe the other Saiyans from this planet would know anything about the Super Saiyan God. Gogeta pauses briefly, then answers with confidence that most likely none of them know anything about it. Beerus lets out a bored sigh and says coming to this planet was nothing but a waste of time. He starts floating upwards slowly, and soon a glowing purple energy sphere begins forming in the palm of his hand. He's about to destroy the planet. Goku immediately jumps into a combat stance, ready to strike. But before he can act, Gogeta stops him and calmly says it would be useless. Not even the two of them fighting together will be able to defeat Beerus. Goku is stunned by the statement, and right then, Gogeta gets an idea. He raises his voice respectfully, catching Beerus' attention, and says that maybe there is a way to take him to the Super Saiyan God. The words make Beerus pause in midair, clearly intrigued, and he asks how exactly Gogeta plans to do that. Without revealing much, Gogeta simply smiles and tells them to follow him. And so, the four of them head off toward Capsule Corporation, where Bulma's birthday party is in full swing. A few seconds later, the four of them arrive at Capsule Corporation. The atmosphere couldn't be more different. Bright lights, cheerful chatter, and the mouth-watering scent of Earth's finest food fill the air. Right then, Chi-Chi steps forward to meet them. She walks with elegance and confidence, her chin held high, like someone who fears nothing and no one. Her eyes lock onto Gogeta as she calmly asks who his new friends are. Gogeta answers seriously, trying to keep the mood light. He tells her that the one over there is Beerus, and that he's not just anyone. He's the most important god in the entire universe, a literal god of destruction. And yes, he's their special guest Before Buichi can even process that, Beerus and Whis are already drifting toward the buffet, completely captivated by the delicious smells in the air. Without a word, the two vanish into the crowd, lured by the feast. Gogeta seizes the moment. He leans in close to Buichi and quietly explains the truth. Earth is in real danger, and under no circumstance can Beerus be provoked. Buichi's expression shifts immediately. Her eyes widen with alarm, and without wasting a second, she rushes off to inform Bulma, Vegeta, and the others. Within minutes, the entire party shifts. The mood tightens. Guests straighten up. Every word, every movement becomes careful. From that moment on, Beerus is treated with the utmost respect. But even so, everyone pulls themselves together and treats Beerus with great care, offering the best food, the finest drinks, doing whatever it takes to avoid being turned into cosmic dust. Whis, as calm as ever, savors the sweet and reassures everyone. He says there's no need to be nervous, that Lord Beerus didn't come to destroy Earth, he just wants to find the legendary Super Saiyan God. Vegeta immediately frowns, cold sweat running down his face, already thinking to himself that this is bad. With the tension contained for now, Gogeta approaches Bulma, calmly but urgently. He tells her what he needs, the Dragon Balls. After eating to his heart's content, with Beerus practically devouring half the buffet by himself, the group decides to use the Dragon Balls again. The question is simple: is it possible to bring this Super Saiyan God to fight Beerus? With a thunderous roar, Shenron emerges, his massive body coiling through the sky, glowing eyes shining down. Majestic and imposing, he surveys the scene and asks what their wish is. Gogeta takes a deep breath and steps forward, his expression serious. Calmly and directly, he asks if there's any way to bring forth the Super Saiyan God to fight Beerus. The moment the name is spoken, Shenron pauses, his eyes widen. Even the thunder seems to fall silent for a second. He lowers himself slightly, bowing his head with respect. His voice changes. The tone becomes formal, almost reverent. He admits he was unaware that Lord Beerus was present, and in the face of such a god, he promises to answer with full clarity and respect. Then he begins his explanation. He says, the Super Saiyan God cannot be summoned directly. This divine form is born from an ancient Saiyan legend, passed quietly through generations and nearly forgotten with time. A ritual is required. 6 pure-hearted Saiyans must join their energy and channel it into one warrior. Only then, for a brief moment, can the power of a god awaken within a mortal. Gogeta walks up to Beerus and suggests performing the ritual, explaining that they have enough Saiyans on Earth to make it happen. Beerus raises an eyebrow, interested, and says that this could be fun to watch. And so the ritual begins. Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Goten, Trunks, and Gogeta form a circle in the courtyard of Capsule Corporation. Their hands clasp tightly, and a profound silence falls over the area. The 6 warriors close their eyes and focus their ki at the deepest level. Their breathing slows. The ground vibrates subtly beneath them. A golden light begins to rise at the center of the circle. At first, it's soft, like a gentle flame, but it grows stronger with each passing second. Their energy connects, heart to heart, will to will. The air starts to warm, tiny sparks dance between their fingers, and the light now pulses as if alive. Whis watches in silence, a faint smile on his face. Beerus stands with his arms crossed, intrigued. Everyone around watches with wide eyes, as if witnessing something sacred. The golden aura bursts upward like a pillar of energy. The grass around them is blown outward, the wind twists into a spiral, and then something begins to awaken. The energy flows from one to another, creating a whirlwind of power that rises to the heavens. And then, Gogeta transforms into a Super Saiyan God. He stares straight at Beerus, divine power glowing in his eyes, and says they will fight. The battle begins. And what unfolds there is far beyond what was seen in the original story. Gogeta's fighting style blends precise technique with raw power. The result? A breathtaking fight. But near the end of the fight, the power of the Super Saiyan God fades. Gogeta returns to his normal form, panting, covered in sweat, but still standing. Beerus crosses his arms with that all-knowing expression and remarks that, so this is the divine form. Interesting, he says, but with that power, Gogeta cannot defeat him. Any transformation below a god is useless against someone like him. Even so, he looks at Gogeta with respect and says that he has great potential, just like the other Saiyans from Earth. But he shouldn't forget that there are beings far stronger than he can possibly imagine. He pauses dramatically and reveals that there are 12 universes, and this is only the 7th. Turning his back, floating away as if nothing happened, Beerus says he might return someday. but not to fight, only to taste more of that delicious pudding. Everyone breathes out in relief. The heavy atmosphere fades like fog under sunlight. Chi-Chi walks over to Gogeta and hugs him tightly, her eyes shining with emotion. She whispers that she was scared that the god of destruction would get angry at Gogeta for being so powerful. But then, in the middle of that calm, happy moment, Chi-Chi turns to Gogeta, places her hand on her belly, and drops the bomb she's pregnant. There's silence for about 2 seconds. Then the place explodes with celebration. Cheers, hugs, Trunks shouting in shock, and even Piccolo cracking a subtle smile. But it doesn't stop there. Videl raises her hand shyly, looks at Gohan, and blushes as she says that, since everyone is sharing, she's pregnant too. The party turns into a full-blown festival of reactions. Saiyans losing their minds, people crying, Boo hugging everyone like a big pink teddy bear. But Saiyans never stop. After dessert, Goku, Vegeta, and Gogeta are already walking off. Piccolo approaches, confused, and asks where they're going. Vegeta answers bluntly, saying they're going to train. That god of destruction is way too strong, and they can't afford to relax. Gohan replies that the party isn't even over yet. Vegeta doesn't respond, he just vanishes toward the gravity chamber like a man with no time to waste. While he trains alone, Goku and Gogeta head to the special room Gogeta built at home for intense sessions. A few days pass and Beerus starts showing up more often. Turns out the guy is obsessed with Earth's food and keeps coming back just to eat. Bulma and Chi-Chi take the opportunity to try to win Whis' favor. Bulma takes the angel to eat at every restaurant in the city. Whis eats in silence, with that slight smile at the corner of his mouth, savoring each new flavor. Later, they take him home. That's where Chi shines. With the culinary instincts inherited from Chi-Chi, she prepares dishes so amazing they make Whis widen his eyes in pure surprise. Meanwhile, Vegeta is already on Beerus' planet, punching everything in sight, driven by a burning desire to grow stronger. Gogeta, feeling restless, tells Goku he wants to train with them too, but he can't just leave Chi alone right now. Whis, listening quietly as always, speaks up. He says that's easily fixed. He raises his hand and, with a simple gesture, accelerates Chi's pregnancy, just like he once did with Bra in another timeline. A soft light surrounds Chi, and then she's there, holding a baby girl in her arms, bright eyes, a shy smile. Whis, calmly munching on a sweet, says she's as beautiful as her mother and probably just as powerful as her father. Gogeta holds the baby gently and looks at Chi, asking how she feels after everything. Chi smiles and says she feels amazing, like she didn't even go through labor. She tells him he can go train with Whis now if he wants to. Right then, Beerus appears out of nowhere with a fork in his hand, interrupting the moment. He says that before they leave, they better let him try that dish. Gogeta's wife was cooking. He's not going anywhere without a bite. After lunch, the atmosphere shifts. Everyone gets up, getting ready for departure. Whis turns to Gogeta and says that now they can go. After the birth of Gogeta and Chi's daughter, Goku and Gogeta left with Whis for Beerus' planet, where they joined Vegeta to begin an extremely intense divine training. And so, the months went by. Over on Lord Beerus' planet, routine was anything but ordinary. Whis, with that enigmatic smile and the manners of a celestial butler, subjected Goku, Vegeta, and the now independent Gogeta to a training regimen that defied all logic. It wasn't just punches and kicks thrown into the vacuum of space, oh no. It included tasks like changing the sheets of a sleeping Beerus without waking the god of destruction. There was also gardening, which meant trimming endless fields of grass across the planet, and chaotic races along roads that vanished beneath their feet, forcing them to levitate or fall into who knows where dimensional chasms. Vegeta complained more than a grumpy old man, saying this was servant work, not warrior training. Goku of course thought it was all great fun, laughing at each new bizarre challenge, and Gogeta? Well, he observed, learned, and executed with terrifying efficiency. The tactical genius of Vegeta blended with Goku's adaptability, but with a cold, calculated focus that was all his own. Whis explained, with the patience of someone teaching a child to tie their shoes, that all of it was meant to strengthen their foundation, refine energy control down to the cellular level, and most importantly, teach them to react with their bodies before their minds even had time to think. It was the subtle path to touch the power of the gods, a state they didn't fully understand yet, but could feel pulsing within Whis with every casual movement. At a certain point, Whis took the three of them into the secret dimension hidden within his staff, an absolute void, suffocating, where time itself seemed to dissolve into nothingness. There, isolated from everything, they weren't just seeking raw power, but complete control over their energy. And it was in that extreme environment that, little by little, they awakened something beyond comprehension. Without the need for rituals, the three of them managed to access and master their divine energy, achieving the legendary Super Saiyan God form on their own. While the Saiyans were busy playing gods and housekeepers, in the shadowy remnants of what was once Frieza's empire, the situation was desperate. Sorbe had become the new leader of Frieza's army, and before his very eyes, their dominion was shrinking day by day. Planets rebelled, soldiers deserted, the glory of the past had become a cruel joke. Desperate, clinging to the only hope he had left, Sorbe made a drastic decision to bring back the original tyrant, to resurrect Frieza. The plan was insane, but it was all he had. And the target? Earth, of course. That insignificant little blue planet that, ironically, held the Dragon Balls capable of making such a miracle possible. With his loyal subordinate Tagoma, Sorbe set course for the planet that had sealed his master's fate. And who did they find there? Conveniently stumbling into their path, as always, none other than the Pilaf Gangmai Shu and Pilaf himself eternal failures, chasing after power and easy riches. A quick bargain, some empty promises of world domination, and it was done. Shenron was summoned, his green scales gleaming under Earth's blue sky. The wish was made, clumsy but clear enough. Bring Frieza back to life. The dragon with his cavernous voice warned that he could only restore the soul. The body had been shattered into pieces across hell or who knows where. Sorbe, already prepared, said it was no problem, their technology would take care of the rest. And so, Frieza's evil soul returned to the world of the living, a specter of pure malice floating in the air. Rushed back to the ship, Sorbe's scientists worked day and night, using highly advanced regeneration technology to reassemble the pieces, reconstructing the Emperor's body molecule by molecule. It was a disgusting process but effective, and then he opened his eyes. Frieza was back, more furious and vengeful than ever before. The first thing Frieza did barely out of the regeneration capsule was obliterate a soldier who dared greet him the wrong way with pure disdain. Then, with those cold venomous eyes, he asked straight to the point what had happened to the Saiyan, Son Goku. Sorbe, trembling like jelly, swallowed hard and spilled everything at once. He told him about the absurd level Goku and Vegeta had reached. And more, he revealed the existence of a new warrior born from their fusion. Someone called Gogeta, even more powerful than either of them. All three of them were now on a completely different level, strong enough to make even the terrifying Majin Buu look like a joke. But instead of flying into a blind rage, something different happened. A cold calculation flickered in the tyrant's red eyes. He realized that the brute strength he had always despised in the Saiyans was now the only way forward. And so, for the first time in his long and sadistic life, Frieza made an unprecedented decision: he would train. He, the prodigy, the emperor of the universe, would lower himself to train like some filthy Saiyan monkey. The thought was revolting, but his thirst for revenge was stronger. 4 months. That's the time he gave himself. 4 months of brutal, hellish training with Tagoma as his personal punching bag. The poor guy barely survived. And the result? Oh, the result was golden. Frieza emerged from his training not just stronger, but transformed. A new form radiant and arrogant with a power even he could barely comprehend. Golden Frieza. He looked at his gleaming reflection, a cruel smile spreading across his thin lips. Now, yes, now he would crush Goku, Vegeta, and anyone else foolish enough to challenge him. Earth would be the stage of his glorious revenge. He was confident, overflowing with power and hatred. Little did he know what awaited him. Back on Earth, that so-called peace was nothing more than a thin sheet of glass waiting to shatter. In the underground lab of Capsule Corporation, Bulma and Chi-Chi were neck-deep in yet another one of their wild projects, surrounded by pulsing holograms, drones in testing mode, and a neural reactor sparking suspiciously. Chi-Chi, with grease on her face and her hair tied up messily, was arguing with Bulma over the calibration of the organic energy core of a new experimental AI when a siren sliced through the lab like a blade, signaling a breach in the outer perimeter. They both turned instantly to the control station. No deliveries were scheduled and no one would dare land there without clearance. Bulma grabbed her tablet and pulled up the external cameras, and that's when they saw it. Jacko's clunky ship had crashed, landed in the middle of the garden. Half its hull crumpled into the flower beds. He stumbled out of the hatch like he'd been spit out, arms flailing in the air, shouting and looking directly into the camera like he was begging to be heard. Butchie remarked she'd seen that look before, and it could only mean serious trouble. Bulma replied that if Jacko was wearing that face, then the news was terrible. Without wasting a second, the two headed up the side elevator to the surface. The garden was eerily quiet, broken only by the frantic footsteps of Jacko running toward them, pale, breathless, and looking like he'd stared death in the eyes. He could barely speak, but what came out hit like a punch. A colossal fleet was heading for Earth, and its leader was none other than Frieza. Bulma nearly dropped her coffee. That name struck like lightning. Frieza? That bastard again? This was the third time, hadn't he learned to stay dead? Butchie's eyes widened, and she asked if Jacko had hit his head in space, because everyone knew Frieza had been obliterated. But Jacko kept shaking his head in panic, explaining that not only was Frieza alive, he was stronger than ever, leading an army of 1,000 soldiers and radiating an energy so intense it made the Galactic Patrol's detectors crash. The tension rose like steam in a pressure cooker. Bulma immediately grabbed her communicator and began calling every contact she had, while Butchie ran back to the garden terminal, activating Capsule Corporation's full defensive protocols. Peace was over. Frieza was coming back, and this time, no one would be caught off guard. Gohan, trying to live a normal life as a scholar, answered the call immediately. Piccolo, meditating atop some isolated mountain, felt the urgency in Bulma's voice. Krillin, now a dedicated police officer, dropped his paperwork. Master Roshi, probably watching a workout show on television, and Tien, training with Chaozu at his remote dojo, were also contacted. The old guard was assembling once again, fully aware that their chances against the resurrected tyrant were slim. Goten and Trunks? They were at Bulma's house, probably up to no good, but were strictly forbidden from fighting. It was far too dangerous even for the fusion Gotenks. The tension was palpable, the fear lingering in the air like a storm about to break. And then the storm hit. It didn't take long for the sky to darken, not with clouds, but with the colossal shadow of Frieza's ship. Thousands of glowing dots descended from the sky. The Emperor's army, a horde of soldiers in all shapes and sizes, armed to the teeth and wearing the blank stares of seasoned mercenaries. Frieza watched it all from his floating throne, a sadistic smile on his face, savoring the fear radiating from the planet below. The battle began without warning. Despite being outnumbered, the Z-Warriors launched themselves into the flood of enemies. Gohan, though rusty, was still a force to be reckoned with, his blows carving through the enemy ranks. Piccolo used his tactical brilliance and elastic arms to take down dozens at once. Krillin, with pinpoint Kienzans, sliced through armor like paper. Master Roshi, surprisingly agile for his age, unleashed his Kamehameha with precision, and Tien fired off powerful Kikohos that tore through the battlefield. It was a chaotic dance of lights, explosions, and screams. The Z-Warriors fought with their usual courage, defending their home with tooth and nail, but the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. For every soldier they struck down, 10 more replaced them. Their energy began to wane, their bodies growing heavier with fatigue. Wasting no time, Bulma and Butchie contacted Whis directly, urgently reporting everything that was happening on Earth. The angel, after listening carefully, understood this wasn't just another incident. Without hesitation, he pulled the 3 Saiyans out of the dimension inside his staff, interrupting their training to inform them of Frieza's invasion. Upon hearing the news, Vegeta crossed his arms and scoffed with that classic look of disdain in his eyes, saying that if Frieza had truly been resurrected, it would be nothing more than a warm-up, something not even Goten and Trunks would struggle with. According to him, Frieza's power had been outdated for a long time, but Bulma cut the mood immediately, saying it wasn't that simple. According to recent intel, even Gohan was hesitant to face him, which meant Frieza had reached an entirely new level of power. Goku, paying close attention to Bulma's worried tone, had an immediate idea. He told her to ask Gohan to release all of his ki everything he had, like an emergency beacon, so he could lock onto it and teleport. On Earth, Gohan didn't hesitate. His body erupted in light, transforming into a Super Saiyan as he unleashed all his energy at once, a desperate cry for help to the universe. And in that exact moment, as his power shot into the sky like a flare, Goku felt it, as if Earth had blinked inside his mind, a fixed point amid the chaos, and with a single thought, he vanished. Then, at the heart of the battlefield, just when all seemed lost, a golden flash tore through the sky like divine thunder. dust swirled, winds howled, and when the mist cleared, 3 figures stood at the center of the war zone: Goku, Vegeta, and Gogeta. Silence fell instantly. The Z-Warriors stared at the scene as if they had just witnessed a miracle. Relief and shock blended across their faces. Frieza's soldiers, driven purely by instinct, took a step back, frozen by the monstrous ki radiating from the 3 Saiyans. It was as if gravity itself had changed in that place. From the top of his throne, Frieza narrowed his eyes. He recognized those auras perfectly: Goku, Vegeta, but there was a third one that unsettled him. A new and powerful, unfamiliar, and deeply disturbing. That figure with flaming hair and eyes that seemed to pierce into his soul. He had never seen him before, but something in Frieza's instinct screamed that one was a Saiyan too, and worse, he was dangerous. Very dangerous. Then Vegeta stated that he would be the one to defeat Frieza alone, but Goku and Gogeta didn't think that was fair. The 3 of them decided to settle it with rock, paper, scissors, completely underestimating the strength of their opponent. Meanwhile, Frieza's irritation grew. The fact that these 3 Saiyans were mocking him with such childish games was infuriating. In the end, it was Gogeta who won, stepping forward without hesitation. Frieza floated closer, gliding silently through the air like a serpent. A mocking smirk twisted across his thin lips, sharp and venomous, as he asked, laced with pure contempt, just who the hell was this new intruder and why was he ruining his fun? Gogeta didn't move. He stood completely still, firm like a mountain surrounded by wind. His gaze passed through Frieza with calm resolve, but within that calm there was weight. The weight of 2 fused Saiyan souls, and a new will that belonged neither to Goku nor to Vegeta, but to something greater. The boldness of that silent reply hit Frieza like a slap to the face. He felt his blood boil, a poisonous heat crawling up his spine. That insolent worm daring to speak to him like that? Unthinkable. And yet, it was exactly the push he needed. Without hesitation, Frieza let out a scream that tore through the sky. In an instant, his aura erupted into pure gold, violent and blazing, engulfing the battlefield in a flash, so bright it outshone the sun. Dust exploded like a typhoon, and the air itself condensed under the overwhelming pressure, crushing everything around. And then, as the light faded, he stood there, radiant, gleaming like a profane trophy, bathed in power. Golden Frieza, the ultimate form of refined hatred, he laughed that sharp, piercing laugh like a blade slicing through the air, full of arrogance and pure disdain. Now this, he said, this was finally worth fighting for. He asked if Gogeta was already trembling, if fear had paralyzed him before the supreme form of the Emperor of the Universe. But Gogeta didn't answer. He didn't need to. He simply raised an eyebrow, as if reacting to a bad joke. Golden? How unoriginal. He closed his eyes for a brief moment and took a deep breath. And then, something changed. A crimson aura emerged around him, thick as blood, serene as a deep ocean. The wind around him stopped. Time itself seemed to slow down. His hair lifted gently, transforming into a blazing shade of red, and his eyes opened red, piercing, cold, devoid of emotion, except for one thing: absolute resolve. Super Saiyan God. His power didn't scream, it whispered. Silent, contained, but infinitely more intimidating. Gogeta looked Frieza up and down, like someone inspecting a museum piece in an outdated shop. So this was the peak of the Space Lizard? What a disappointment. The fight, if it could even be called that, began, or rather, the humiliation began. Golden Frieza charged forward like a golden lightning bolt, intoxicated by the brilliance of his own power. His attacks came at absurd speed, punches and kicks that, in any other context, could have reduced a planet to stardust. But against Gogeta, they were just wind. Gogeta barely moved. His feet barely scratched the ground. He dodged effortlessly, almost bored, as if dancing alone. Every punch was blocked with a single finger. Every kick stopped by his forearm, without even trying. The impact sounded like muffled snaps, nothing more. Frieza, growing more and more furious, started shouting as he ramped up the speed. His eyes trembled with rage. He unleashed a barrage of energy blasts that tore through the sky like plasma blades. But Gogeta, calm as if swatting away mosquitoes, just batted the attacks aside with lazy slaps. Not a mark, not a scratch, just pure, absolute disdain. With every indifferent dodge, Frieza's pride shattered a bit more. He screamed, unhinged, demanding that damn Saiyan fight back. Why wasn't he attacking? Why was he mocking him like this? Gogeta stared at him for a moment, and then finally moved. But it wasn't a devastating blow or a secret technique. It was just a flick. Simple, straight to the forehead. The dry thwack echoed for a second, and then Frieza's body was sent flying through the air, like a pebble kicked by a child, crashing into a mountain miles away. The explosion of dust was colossal, swallowing the horizon in a mushroom cloud of pulverized rock. Gogeta just sighed, adjusted his vest calmly, and muttered bored that he was hoping for something more entertaining, because honestly, this had been way too easy. From a distance, Goku and Vegeta watched with crossed arms. Vegeta had a faint smile on his face, barely visible. He commented in his usual tone of superiority that Gogeta was having a bit too much fun with the worm. Goku laughed, scratching the back of his head. Just then, a flash of light announced the arrival of Beerus and Whis. But neither of them seemed even remotely interested in the fight. With a wave of his staff, Whis materialized a small table with chairs and the famous strawberry parfait Bulma had promised. Beerus sat down instantly, grabbing a spoon and diving into the dessert with divine enthusiasm. Whis watched Gogeta with clinical curiosity, casually remarking to Beerus that Gogeta's control over Divine Ki was getting quite refined, though still a little showy. Beerus just grumbled a muffled mmm with a mouthful of cream and strawberries. Frieza emerged from the rubble staggering, still golden, but his shine already dulled by humiliation. He was panting like a cornered beast, his body trembling with rage and shame. That fusion, that damn Saiyan, was toying with him, mocking everything he was. Despair began to eat away at his confidence, like rust-consuming steel. If he couldn't win by force, then he'd destroy everything. Without a second thought, he began gathering all the energy he could still dredge up from the depths of his soul. He ignored the brutal drain of the golden form, ignored the pain slicing through his body, ignored all reason. A massive sphere of dark, unstable energy began to form above his head, crackling like a living storm. It grew quickly, devouring the light around it. This was his final trump card, the supernova of vengeance. His laughter echoed through the skies, manic, fanatical. He screamed that if he couldn't beat them in battle, then he'd take the universe down with him. Goodbye, filthy Saiyans. Goodbye, Earth. The sphere descended, slowly, inevitably, pressing down on the world like an omen of extinction. The sky went dark, the ground shook, panic overtook the remaining Z-warriors. The end felt certain. But Gogeta didn't move. He simply raised a hand, a single hand, and the supernova stopped. Just meters from his outstretched palm, the colossal sphere hovered, vibrating, pulsing, straining to push forward. But it couldn't. Gogeta looked at the mass of destruction with almost visible boredom. Seriously? That was it? With a slight twist of his wrist, he redirected the supernova as if swatting away a raindrop. The sphere shot into the sky, disappearing into deep space, where it detonated in a silent flash, lost among the stars. Frieza was frozen in place. His strongest attack deflected like it was nothing. The defeat was total, irrefutable, humiliating. Gogeta floated toward him calmly. His red eyes met Frieza's like blades. There was no anger, no pity, only judgment. The Emperor fell to his knees, staring at the ground. He closed his eyes, ready for the end. He expected annihilation, but it didn't come. Gogeta just stared, unmoving. He could have ended Frieza right there, erased his existence with a breath, but he didn't. Because that would have been a mercy, and this was no act of mercy. This was a lesson. Gogeta spoke. His voice was calm, but each word cut like a blade. Leave, Frieza. Crawl back into whatever hole you came from. And remember this. Remember that there is a level you will never reach. Live with that truth. That is your punishment. Frieza didn't answer. There was nothing left to say, only the sound of his pride disintegrating inside him. Frieza couldn't believe what he had just heard. Spare his life? After all of that? This wasn't mercy. It was the final insult. A strike to his pride more painful than any physical blow. Being left alive as a reminder of his own helplessness was worse than death. Shaking, drenched in cold sweat beneath the golden glow, he clenched his teeth so hard it seemed they might shatter. His body still trembled, not just from exhaustion, but from shame. From hatred, from utter humiliation. With a quick gesture, Frieza signaled to Sorbet, who immediately rushed in with the ship, desperate to get him out of there before it was too late. As he climbed the boarding ram, Frieza continued growling threats as if trying to prop up his shattered dignity with hollow words. He claimed this wasn't over, that he would return stronger, much stronger. Strong enough to wipe out all the Saiyans once and for all. Goku, Vegeta, Gogeta, all of them. but his voice no longer carried the same weight. The ship launched at full speed, tearing through the sky and vanishing into the clouds, taking with it a wounded empire, a crumbling ego, and the undeniable truth that, on this day, the Emperor of the Universe had been reduced to nothing more than a footnote in the power of the true gods of battle. On Earth, a heavy silence settled over the battlefield. The dust was still clearing, but the hearts of the Z warriors beat to a different rhythm, somewhere between relief, confusion, and sheer awe. One by one, they approached Gogeta, still trying to process what they had just witnessed. That hadn't been a fight, it had been a demonstration, a reminder of the abyss that separated them from him. At the top of a nearby hill, Beerus finished licking the spoon of his parfait. He sat under the shade of a tree, wearing the bored expression of someone who expected more from the menu. He commented to Whis that the dessert had been excellent, but the battle? Disappointing. Whis smiled politely, as always, and twirled his staff in the air. In the blink of an eye, they vanished. Goku, Vegeta, and Gogeta disappeared with them, as if they had never been there. They returned to the dimension of the God of Destruction's planet, where time flowed differently and gravity weighed on the soul. Because the training was far from over. For Goku and Vegeta, it was routine. The endless pursuit of breaking limits, reaching the next level, pushing themselves day after day. But for Gogeta, it was something more. He had proven his superiority. Frieza had been a mere formality. But the sensation pulsing in his chest was unsettling. That hadn't been a challenge, and he wasn't created to fight easy battles. The real war, he knew, was within, against himself, against the burden of being the fusion of two titans, and against the mysterious call of a dormant power he could feel echoing still trapped deep within his divine essence. The journey was only beginning, and the universe was nowhere near ready for what was coming.